Hi, this is my first tutorial video. My name is Art. I'm going to show how to make algorithmic melodies and rhythms with audio and MIDI in Ableton Live, which is a technique that I discovered about 10 years ago that's still one of my favorite ways to make music in Ableton. And I haven't heard too many people talk about it, so let's get into it. So first of all, to make things go a little easier, you're going to want to go to Preferences and go to the Record Warp Launch tab, and you're going to want to click off this right here, Default Launch Quantization. Change that to none. I think by default it's 1 bar usually, and that's something you'll understand in a minute what that means if you don't already, and something you might actually want to keep on for different reasons, but for this demonstration I don't think it's necessary. I think it's something I almost always turn off. And so I collected these two samples from freesound.com, I think it's .com or .net. It's a really awesome website where people upload free samples that you could use with different copyright licenses. But they're all variations on free usage. And these two are, I think this is a drum sample. I'm going to raise the amplitude on it because it's a really quiet sample. And this is a violin sample. So you could just play these each once and hear what they sound like. That's the drums. And here's the violin sample. Okay, here it is. Okay. So, so this technique could be applied to rhythm or melody. So I'm going to demonstrate both with these two samples. So first of all, to do algorithmic sequencing in Ableton, this is where it's at. It's called the follow action. It's in this whole screen right here is called session view. You may already know. I'm just going to close that. We don't need that right now. This is the arrangement view, so you can click tab to go back and forth between them. And this session view is ordinarily used for like playing live. I mean, it was kind of the whole novel approach that Ableton introduced with the software to begin with, was to have this session view as a way to easily perform live rather than just left to right conventional DAW sequencing and playback, which is what this is, which Cubase and Logic and Pro Tools already had before Live came on the scene in 2001 or 2 or whatever. So anyway, this is a really cool feature they added at some point, I guess by Ableton 3 or 4, which is I think when I started using it. And that's the follow action. So, first of all, I'm not sure, I don't think you need loop on to do this, but I'm going to move this end marker so we only get this section of the sample. And I'm going to raise the volume so it just looks visibly, you know, just below the point of clipping. So we have a good volume for this track. And now, when I go down to follow action, and here you can see the quantization it says none. Ordinarily, by default, that would say 1 bar, but that's what we turned off in preferences already. Launch mode says trigger, and you could read on the left there, in the help box in the lower left corner, what all the different launch modes do. But trigger is the one that I go with usually. And velocity amount is not important right now. So follow action, this is where it's at. So this 1 means 1 bar, and if we click on this box and hit the down arrow, we'll go down to, I guess that's like a 3/4 of a bar. This is half a bar. This is a quarter of a bar, and then you can subdivide it even further over here. And so I'm going to put that back at 1 for now. And this is where it gets interesting. So Ableton gives you 2 options for the follow action. And these numbers down here go from 0 to 999, which you can move with your mouse cursor, which is kind of a ridiculous range of where basically they could have just done 1 to 10 and it would have been 0 to 10 and that would have been fine. But basically what these 2 numbers indicate is the probability relative to each other of which follow action will happen. So I'll show what that means right here. And here are the different follow actions. By default, they're both set to no action. And then there's stop, play again, previous. You can see there's a few different choices. So if we want to go random, any is usually where I start. Random is always a good place to start. And then usually I'll just hit the up arrow once to get a 1, or you can just type in 1. So now this will just make it play, this will make the sample play over and over. It'll loop it for a bar at 120 BPM. So let's see that happen. There, okay. So, and the same exact effect would happen if I hit play again, because right now there's only 1 clip for it to choose from. Now, if I click, well, okay, so what I just did there is if you highlight that clip and then hit Control or an Apple D, you duplicate the clip right beneath the first one. And now for this duplicated clip, I'll stop that playing right now. I just hit spacebar. So I'm going to make that happen twice as fast. So I guess that's half a bar. So, and actually I'm going to highlight both of these clips now. I just highlighted one and hit Shift on the second one to highlight both. And I'm going to change that back to any. So now any means random. So there's an equal chance that when this clip plays, after it's gone through a bar, it's going to play again, or it's going to play the other clip. And when this clip plays, there's going to be an equal chance that it plays again after half a bar, or it's going to go to this other clip. So this will give us an interesting rhythm. I mean, kind of boring actually. So actually, I think a whole bar in this little drum sound is not enough. It's too much empty space. So I'm going to lower this to 1, a quarter of a bar. So now we're starting to get an interesting rhythm. And I could do it one more time. And on this one, I just hit Control D. I'm going to lower this one to a quarter of a bar, an eighth of a bar. Okay, so now let's say I want this really quick clip. And by the way, if you ever want to just hear what one sounds by itself easily, you can just separate it from the others. And once it's disconnected, it'll only play, it'll only respond to clips that are adjacent to each other. So it'll play, so it won't go to so if you want to hear what it just sounds like just with this really fast clip, we can hit it now. And it won't go back to those two. Okay, so let's say I want that to happen more often, the really fast eighth notes or whatever. Then I'm going to click this second follow action and have it do play again. And I'm going to go to the number down here and highlight that box and hit the up arrow and turn it up to 2. So what this means is now there's a 2-to-1 probability, or I guess maybe that's a 1 in 3 chance it's going to go to. I'm going to change that from any to other. Other means it won't play the same clip. It'll play a different clip randomly. And so now there's a 1 in 3 chance it's going to do that, and a 2 in 3 chance it's going to do that, basically. So now if I reconnect it back to this group of rhythmic clips here, we can hear how that, now this clip will play more often than it goes to the others, which will give us a more interesting rhythm, I think. There, you see how it's, when it gets to this one, it's more likely it's going to play again. So I actually want to do that one more time, duplicate it again, and make it a 16th note, and make it even more likely it's going to play again, only because 16th notes are going to go by quicker. So it's, yeah, that's cool. And I mean, a really easy way to make this more interesting is just add a little delay. Cool, so that's basically it. And then you have some other options here of follow actions. So rather than have it play any any other clip, I could make it go back to the first one. So we could hear if that makes any difference. I mean, I think that's kind of arbitrary. I don't think it makes too much of a difference, but you know, but those are the, it just gives you more variation of control of how you could set this up. And I call this algorithmic. You could also call it generative, because it's not totally random. I mean, I'm not sure the exact definition of an algorithm, but it's basically just a, well, maybe I shouldn't use the word algorithm, but this is probabilistic. Every clip, especially these last two now, have like a probability of what they're going to do, you know? So there's a 1 in 4 chance it's going to go back to the first clip on this one, and over here there's a 3 in 4 chance it's going to play the same clip again. So now I'm going to add some melody. So we're going to take this violin sample, and I'm going to demonstrate how to apply this rhythmic concept. Well, that was basically a demonstration of how to use this rhythmically, this follow action technique. Now we're going to do the same thing, but focus also on melody. So I don't really like how high this note is. I don't like to start tracks with really high pitches usually, especially a really grating one like this violin sound, I think. Yeah, it's not a very pleasant sound to start a song with, in my opinion. So I'm going to go to the Transpose knob here, and I'm going to hit on my keyboard, I'm hitting -24, which is 24 steps down, which is 2 octaves, 12 notes in an octave. You know, if you think of a piano, all the white and black keys, there's 12 notes in an octave. You probably already know that. And so 12 times 2, so that's taking me down 2 octaves. So now it's going to give me more of like a cello type of sound. And it's not going to, it's going to be like twice as long, I think, because I'm not warping it. So let's see what that sounds like. It's going to be 4 times as long, actually, as the first sample. Yeah. So actually, I'm going to take it down 1 more octave just for fun. -36. You can go as far as -48 with these. Okay. So that's pretty cool. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with a follow action of 1/4 of a bar, and I'm going to have it play any, and I'm going to duplicate, and also I didn't say it verbally, I didn't say it, but I raised this follow action chance to 1. And it just has to be any number higher than 0 for it to activate. If you have it at 0, the follow action just won't ever happen. It'll just play once and stop. But it doesn't really matter if it says 1 or 999 or any number in between. They're all going to do the exact same thing unless you activate the other one. And once you activate the other one, then it's just they're relative to each other. So if I made this one 1 and this one 999, made this one stop, that would mean there's a 1 in 1,000 chance that the clip is not going to stop after it plays once, which we could see. Which means that that's a really small chance. So it's probably going to just stop. Right. Okay. So I'm putting that back to 0. So now the stop won't even happen. Now it'll just play again. So what I want to demonstrate with this violin sample is how to make it go. First, we'll start with just a random choice between different notes in a scale. And then we could maybe add some rhythmic variation as well. So I'm going to highlight this clip, Control D, and let's make it go up. Let's try 2 notes. So it'll randomly go between 2 notes. I mean, it's 2 steps higher. So let's see what that sounds like. I'm going to add a little reverb. Now I'm going to Control D again. Bring this up another 2 notes, 3 notes. Or, yeah, so in this case, I would just experiment until I found another note that I like in this random arpeggio. Because right now, this is really just it's randomly playing between these 3 different samples that are all 3 different pitches of the same sample. I don't actually like hearing the same notes so often right after each other on this, so I'm going to change that from any. I just highlighted all 3 clips by clicking one, shift and click the opposite, the full range that you want to highlight, and I'm going to click other as the follow action. So now it's going to guarantee it plays one of the other 2 clips every time one of them is played. So let's see what that sounds like. Yeah, that's pretty cool. I like that. Okay, so in addition to that, I mean, you could do so many different things. Like I've already shown you with the drums how you could add a second follow action. Right now this is set to 0, so the second follow action won't happen, but has a 0 chance of happening. But if you want, and by the way, I pretty much never use the stop follow action because that would just end the playback. So, but okay, so so you could add another follow action to make the same note play again, which isn't very interesting for this right now, I don't think. Another thing you can do is change the start position over here. So to add variation. And so the way I would do this is I would highlight all 3 clips again, and I'm going to hit Control or Apple key D to duplicate all 3. And now I'm going to highlight these other 3 that I just duplicated. And, oh, actually, you have to do them individually. So I'm going to take these 3, and I'm going to just kind of randomly change the start position of the playback on these 3 notes. So this will give us a nice variation of just tonal differences, because it's a different part of the sample that's going to play. It's not very noticeable actually, so, you know, whatever, but it's just, at least that demonstrates the concept. Actually, it would actually be more interesting to do with this sample, because we could change the start position on one of these to a totally different drum hit, which will probably sound very different. Like that hit sounds, or even something more subtle like that. So that's a demonstration of most of what I wanted to show. The other thing, and yeah, this technique of changing the playback start position didn't really do that much audibly, in my opinion. So, but the other thing you can do is you can change the transposition of all three together, and that will make a very dramatic change. So if you look down on the very bottom of the window, you can see it says coarse transposition -36 ST to -31 ST. ST is short for steps or semitones. I forget which. I think steps. But anyway, 12 steps in an octave. That's all you need to know. So something you can do is you highlight all three of these clips that I duplicated and hit the transposition, and basically just use your mouse to raise it until you see the range go up 12. So now it went up to the point of -24. So basically it went up an octave. So now we've got a 2-octave arpeggio basically. So let's hear what that sounds like. We could repeat that one more time just for fun. Now, one of the cool things about Ableton is I don't think there's any real limit to how many clips you can have. So, or at least I've never reached it. So right now we have 9 clips on this 2-track. I mean, you can create a clip. I think it's called a scene with Control or Command Apple key I. But you could just do what I was doing. Well, I'll just demonstrate that. If you Command I, you can add a bunch of clips or scenes, I guess. I guess that's the whole row. But if you just highlight the whole section and Apple key duplicate, and this gets a little tricky because you gotta highlight the right ones. So I've highlighted all the ones I just duplicated, I think. And so what I'm going to do is now I'm going to add the rhythmic variation to these clips. So now that's going to be, I guess if those were quarter notes, now we'll have eighth notes in this randomized arpeggio as well, basically. Of all the same 3 octaves, 3 different notes for each octave. So let's see what that sounds like. So that's pretty much it. That's a generative approach to using Ableton Live. An algorithmic approach, a probabilistic approach, whatever you want to call it. And from there, you know, the sky's the limit. So I'll demonstrate a couple other things I like to do for fun with this kind of, just to add a little extra variation to this. So you could take the whole track itself and hit Control D and duplicate the whole track. And by the way, like, even if you're using a pretty slow computer, sample playback is one of the lowest CPU usage things you could do. So adding an extra track or duplicating it, you know, it's not going to add very much overhead or processor requirements, unless you add like 50 tracks or something. Unlike VST plugins, which, you know, sometimes, you know, one track will take this all the way to like 100%. You'll hear the nasty clicks and stuff. So anyway, now I'm going to mute this track, because what I'm going to do here is I duplicated what I just made, and I went to the panning knob, and I made this go all the way to the left, this one go all the way to the right. So basically, this will give us a really cool stereo effect of the same arpeggio happening algorithmically on the hard left, hard right pan channels. So let's hear what that sounds like. And I'm going to hit the play button over here, which will start all of the clips at the same time. That's why I muted the drum, so we could hear just the melody for now. So yeah, so there you go. That's a demonstration of what you can do with that. And one last thing I'll just show quickly is that everything we just did can also be applied to MIDI clips. So I can just double click to start a MIDI clip here, and Command B to change my cursor to this little pencil icon. And I don't really know what the right note is, but we'll just click a random note. And I'll get the good old operator here as the instrument, and which is just a sine wave by default. So let's hear, oh yeah. So now, and let's go to the launch mode, follow action section. Let's make that, hit the down arrow, so we'll make it a quarter note. We'll make it play any, which is just, let's hear what that sounds like. So let's hear if that's in key or not. Doesn't sound like it's in key. It's not in key, so I'm going to change the note. I hit Control B to change the cursor back, highlight it, make it go up a note. Let's see if that sounds right. That sounds good. Let's lower the octave one. Okay, so we've got a note, and I'm going to duplicate that clip and change the note, make it go up. Let's see if that works. Change it to that. Let's get a third one. I think that should be in key. Well, I was going to try to duplicate those 3 notes and bring them up an octave, but unfortunately there's no easy way to do that as a group. So I would have to raise the notes one at a time up an octave. And this is really just to demonstrate that this is possible with MIDI as well as audio, but MIDI and audio work differently, so I wouldn't even necessarily make a song this way exactly, but let's hear what that sounds like now. It should be. Also, I should mention at this point, I turned off the quantization of the launch mode, which I did that because if it's a bar, that will limit you from having a follow action shorter than a bar, I believe. Which is, so I wouldn't be able to demonstrate everything I've shown up to this point. However, having the quantization on to some degree, like maybe even just like a 16th note or 32nd note, that would allow you to just hit play and start a loop or start one of these tracks going, one of these algorithmic follow action tracks, and it would stay on the beat. Because right now, it's whenever I'm going to hit stop all of them and demonstrate this. So when I start this, whenever I hit this, it's going to start as soon as I hit it. So it won't be locked into the metronome. Like you can hear that locked into the metronome. But when I hit this, it could be totally off. I mean, so that's the deal with that. So just another thing to consider. Usually I avoid that problem by what I showed earlier, where I'll just mute a track or maybe start a song even with like the volume down on all the channels and then hit play over here so they start off all synchronized, because they're all, if they all start at the same time, it's the same exact thing. They're going to stay synchronized. And then I'll just fade in the volume or unmute the track when I want. So let's see what this sounds like now. Yeah, just to clarify, I added the extra octave on I duplicated the first 3 notes I created on this operator channel with MIDI, and I made them go up an octave. So now we've got a 2-octave arpeggio, basically, that's random, or probabilistic, or algorithmic, or whatever. And I'm going to hit play over here so everything's in sync. Let's hear what that sounds like. Alright, so that's pretty much what I set out to demonstrate. I hope I did a decent job. This is my first tutorial video. If there's anything else you'd like me to go deeper into, leave a comment and let me know. And yeah, so now I think you know a little bit more about what this follow action does and how you could use it to create algorithmic rhythms and melodies in Ableton Live with audio and MIDI. So I hope you've enjoyed this video and have a great day.